Welcome to the Mother-Daughter-ish podcast. It's your mama's favorite podcast.
And the podcast your daughter always wanted.
This is Miss Dawn.
And Aungelique.
From the 713. Houston, y'all. Get connected and stay connected weekly as new shows debut on Sunday, Wednesday, and please check out our Saturday Out and About showcases.
Enjoy the show. Please subscribe, like, share, comment, and tell every woman on the planet that you know about our show.
Here's our show for today. And today I'm introducing you to Miss Eileen Dillon. There's her and her baby. And she is a world traveler and she's almost 80 years old. She lives in an RV and she travels the world. I know you're going to be excited about what she has to say because I'm going to be learning as well. But here we go with Miss Eileen Dillon. Lives all over the world in her RV with her dog. Hello, mothers and daughters. I tell you what, I've got some excitement for you today. I am so excited to introduce you to one of our women for my series of wonderful women, and I found this wonderful woman through another person that you guys have met, Miss Louise Dewey, and she introduced me to Mrs. Eileen Dillon. And I'm telling you, when I first talked to her, she was so fascinating. I said, oh, mothers and daughters, I got to share this with you. But Miss Eileen Dillon has such a fascinating life that I thought I have to share this so that other women can know, hey, this is happening now. This is possible. This is you taking control of your life. And so thank you for being on the show today, Mrs. Dillon.
My pleasure. Wow, what a nice introduction. Thank you.
Yes, and as they can see on the screen, I've got your banner up. It says that you can master your emotions. I mean, when I saw that part, the rest of the sentence was just like, I get it. But it says master your emotional state with the power of that create a lasting change. And that's what we really want, is something that's a lasting change. Now, as you guys can see, this beautiful woman is got a great personality looking on her face. You can tell she's got energy, but let me tell you, you have no idea. And that's what I want to introduce to you. So again, thank you, Ms. Dillon, for being on here today. And I just really want to talk about what it is that you're doing that I feel makes you a wonderful woman. And so I would like for us to dive straight in if you're all ready.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is the fact that you are a licensed therapist, the fact that you are still taking control of your life and you live. When I usually tell people, well, yeah, I'm going to be interviewing this person from North Carolina, but I have to interview you and say you are a woman who lives wherever you want to live when the time is right for you. So we'll dive into that so that the mothers and daughters will know what I'm talking about on that. But let's dive right in and start talking about how did you end up at this point where you are living a life of freedom. You're living a life of doing what you love. You're living a life on the road, going wherever you want. How did you get there? Because sometimes we need the story so that we can understand how things happen.
Okay. Well, it certainly was not always like this, although I have had many unexpected, unusual things. For example, in the 1960s, I lived on a houseboat in Seattle, which I didn't expect, but my first husband and I did. We drove cross country and found a houseboat and lived there for 5 years and completed college together.
Okay.
So, I started out as a miserable kid who was in a military family. I lost my birth mother when I was less than 3 years old. And I went from pillar to post. I lived in Germany, I lived in France, I lived in various states in the US. And to escape my dysfunctional family, I married at the age of 19. And that's the person I was with when we lived on the houseboat. And we supported each other to get through college. And both of us, interestingly enough, became social workers. So we got in the business of helping people. he is now an ordained Episcopal minister. He kept going.
Okay.
But
Okay.
I had a private practice for 50 years. And I have a private, because I'm still doing some of that work now. I
Mhm.
started in 1972.
Mm.
And yeah, and so let's see, how did I get into the RV? Well, my husband got ill with prostate cancer
Mhm.
in 2012, and we helped him to go through his illness, and he died in early 2016. And I was planning to sit on my behind in our home in Northern California and heal a bit. And
Mhm.
then my very intuitive son, to whom I listen, came to me one day and said, "So, Mom, how old are you? And how long do you think you want to live? And how much money do you have? And how do you want to spend the money that you have? Do you want to keep paying
Heavy
taxes
question.
on this house?
Heavy
You want to keep
questions.
paying taxes on this house, or would you like to do something different?" And I said,
Right.
"I want to do something different." So
Mhm.
I took a year and I cleaned out the house. I closed down my brick and mortar business. I sold the house and I bought an RV. And that's how I got here. And I
Wow.
started out on the road in May of 2017.
Oh my gosh. Was that scary to do though? Or did you just say, I'm gonna do it, I don't care what it feels like? Was it scary?
No, I don't do fear anymore. As you saw, emotional mastery is my forte. And I am a recovered angry person.
Mhm.
And I worked many years to learn about anger and how to make lasting changes so it doesn't rule my life anymore. There wasn't any information in the 70s when I started that inquiry. But once I figured out how anger works, then as I turned 50, so that would be uh, 29 years ago,
Right?
as I turned 50, I thought to myself, I wonder if I could do anything about fear. Because I had been afraid my entire life. I had been a single parent for 20 years, and I didn't have any financial backing, and I didn't have a lot of savings, and sometimes I couldn't afford medical insurance and that sort of thing. So
Right.
I'd lived on the edge of fear a lot.
Right.
And so I started looking at fear, and I actually came up with a way of working with fear. And as I started to practice it just to see how it worked, I became less and less and less and less and less fearful. You
That's right.
can't ever get rid of emotions entirely,
Right.
but instead of it taking up all of my life, fear now takes up about that much.
That's right. That's
And so no, people say, "Oh, you're in an RV and you're in your 70s, and aren't you afraid?" Or what courage it takes. And I say, well, we define courage as feeling the fear and doing it anyway.
mhm.
I don't feel the fear in the first place, so I
Right.
don't have to use courage. So
Absolutely.
that's been really wonderful, being emotionally masterful. And that's what I'm now doing too, Dawn. I'm writing books and appearing on podcasts and working with coaching individuals because I want to bring emotional mastery to the world. Most people who talk about emotions, uh, they're offering advice that I could have gotten in the 1950s.
Right.
Most people still do not know that it is possible to be a recovered angry person or a recovered fearful person.
Right.
And so I'm dedicated for the rest of my life to bringing that to people in the world. And currently I'm writing the first of 10 books on emotional mastery that I'm planning to complete. And I have already written one that's published on Amazon.
Well, let's definitely dive into the books. I'm going to show on the screen right now one of the books that you have on your website, and I want you to
Ah,
talk to people about not just this book, but you've got some other books that you've been able to do, like a compilation with other people that also led you to then being one of Amazon's
right.
sellers because of that.
Well, that's a much smaller book. This is the book that's actually published on Amazon. It's
Okay.
called Emotions in Motion: Mastering Life's Built-in Navigation System.
Mm-hmm.
And Um, so I don't know how much we want to go into it, but essentially, emotions I see as a gift that we've been given, and emotions are energy, so they need to move. And
Mm-hmm.
most of us have been taught not to let them move. We hold on to anger and we hold on to fear, but we need to get them to move. And when we do, those emotions each emotion has a message for us that helps us to learn from the experiences that we have. Every time we have an experience, it's an opportunity to learn.
Right.
And so, partnering with emotions, that's why I call it our built-in navigation system.
Mm-hmm.
These emotions that we feel,
Mm-hmm.
they are designed to help us figure out our lives. And
Right.
the more we do it, the easier it becomes to figure it out, and the less
Practice.
pressure there is from emotions.
Right.
And so that's my one book that's on Amazon. And then the compilation books that you were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a member of the Wellness Universe,
Mm-hmm.
and we have put out a series. They have four. I did the first three. I have a chapter in, and these books got me to Amazon bestseller status nationally and internationally. Also,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're called the Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self Care,
Uh-huh.
and this one is on stress release, and this one is on achievement, and the other one, which I don't have with me right this second,
It's okay.
is on I can't remember. Happiness. Yes,
Happy.
it's on
Okay.
happiness. Yes.
Okay.
And the chapter that I wrote in there is called the Dalai Lama's Smile.
Ooh, that sounds very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, it is. You
Okay.
know, the Dalai Lama has been through a whole lot of things. He's lost his country. He's lost the people he's supposed to rule. He has gone through all kinds of changes. And almost every time you see him or pictures of him, he's smiling.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so very inspirational when you're talking about being happy to think about what the Dalai Lama is doing that he smiles all the time. So that's
All
what
the
I
time.
write about in that chapter.
Smiling all the time through all the things he's been through, and that's the tools that people need to understand, because we all go through certain things. Now, I noticed on your
Right.
website you had down at the bottom, you said, click here for a consultation. Can you walk us through
Uh-huh.
what that consultation is kind of like? A little bit about the therapy that you provide, how long that therapy sessions are. Let's talk about that, and
Hmm.
then maybe even some examples of people that you've been able to really, really support and heal.
The most important person I've supported and healed is right here.
That's right. That's
And
right.
that's true for all of us. So I
Yes.
just start with that.
Yes.
Uh, I heard somebody talking to a group of therapists about the turn of the century, and all the therapists were interested in how can we help other people go through these changes. And the leader said, "Well, it's wonderful that you want to help other people, but the main reason you're here on the earth is to heal yourself."
So,
And what I have found in doing that is that I'm able to help a whole lot more people because things are not churning in me. And also, since I'm constantly learning,
mhm,
people come to me and they have issues, and I go, "Well, how did I work that one out?" And then I have some things to offer them on
right.
how it worked out for me. So the consultation is a 15-minute consultation where we can talk about what your issues are and what you may need. What 50 years I've been doing this. What I found is that in even 15 minutes, I usually can give somebody 1 to 3 things to work on that will immediately make their life better.
Right,
So
right.
that's what I'm offering. The therapy that I do is not a traditional therapy, of course.
Good.
Um, I call myself a transpersonal therapist, which means that I have a spiritual aspect to the work that I do.
Mhm.
I find that most of us are not living in harmony with spiritual principle. For example, most of us work on the basis of personality and not principle. And you can see examples of it in our culture too.
Mhm.
Um, but we say things like, "Well, Dawn, since you're my friend, I'll do this thing for you that I wouldn't do for anybody else, but I'll do it for you. That's personality,
Okay.
right? And I got myself into trouble, even with my own sister working in personality, because she was my sister. And it doesn't work very well.
Right.
Mother Nature, by contrast, if you're out walking in the woods and you stop under a tree and the tree is about to drop its limb, the tree doesn't look down and go, oh my gosh, Dawn, it's you. I'm not going to drop my limb because it's
Right.
you, right? If you're there, it drops the limb. That's living in principle. So the question to ask yourself is, whatever I'm thinking about doing for this person or whatever is being asked of me, am I willing to do it for everybody that asks? And if the answer is no, not a good idea to do it.
Right.
Because if you do it, you will be in personality, not principle. So
Right.
those kinds of things I'm helping people. So ultimately, I see the earth as a big giant school, and we've all come here in order to learn and grow. And I say euphemistically,
you know, I just decided to talk about this topic today because I let it kind of
Something is
over
happening.
the last few weeks die down a little bit, but I'm gonna talk about
I think
the
it's
movie
because
Nope.
the phone wrong.
Nope. The reason I let it die down a little bit is because I had so much high hope.
Okay, it's gonna
In
shut
the
us
movie.
down. It's gonna shut down.
And I questioned myself as to why I had high hopes in the movie, because
Oh my god.
I really didn't like some of his other movies.
Okay, it's gonna shut
Now,
down.
I will tell you what got me is that after maybe a year after the movie was made, Get Out, when I saw it, it was just so real that I was like, yeah. All right, so just continuing with the therapy that you provide.
right. What I've learned over the years is to see our world as a big giant school, that we've all come here to learn and grow. Our main lesson, if you will, is about love and not love, which we're all familiar with.
Yeah.
And one of the little sayings I've developed is that we get our homework assignments in our childhoods. And we work on those homework assignments throughout our lives, because once they've been presented, we must resolve them before we can go on.
Right.
And most people don't really know that. Most therapists don't work with this kind of model. And so we end up thinking that bad things happen to us, or fate is doing this or that, or somebody else does it to us. But in reality, the experiences we have are all designed to help us learn.
Right.
And every time we have an experience, up with it comes emotions. It's important that we don't call emotions like my anger or my fear, because when we do that, we hold it to us. And since emotions are energy, they need to move. We don't want to hold them to us.
Mm-hmm.
So I say that anger rises through the process of an experience.
Right.
And so basically what I'm doing as a therapist is teaching people this system and teaching them how to work with it themselves. And largely, one of the best ways to work with it is when something happens, just what I ask myself is, what could I possibly be trying to teach myself by having this experience?
Mm.
Okay. And at first, you might not get an answer, but once you keep doing it for a while, you get an answer like that. And in this book that I wrote,
Mm-hmm.
as I told you, emotions, every emotion has a message. Well, I have 12 emotions in this that I tell what the message is.
Okay.
So, for example, loneliness. We mostly think of loneliness as that happens because we're alone. But if you think about it, we can feel alone in a crowd. We can feel lonely in a crowd. We can feel lonely in a marriage.
Right.
And so it's not about being alone. It's really about energy. whenever we have more energy going out than we have coming in for ourselves,
Right.
we feel lonely.
Right.
And so, an easy thing that I teach people I work with, an easy way to not feel lonely is when you notice there's loneliness there, you do something you have a talent for,
Right.
because that brings a ton of energy into you.
Right. Right.
And so, another way of looking at it, loneliness is the signal that you're not loving yourself enough.
Oh, okay.
You follow that?
Yes.
Energy
Yes.
coming in is about loving yourself. And
Yes.
so you start working with things. One of the interesting things that happened is during COVID, in the early part of COVID, I was sheltering in place for about a year at my son's home in Northern California.
Mm-hmm.
And all these people that I had worked with before started contacting me on through the internet, people who I'd worked with up to 40 years ago. And
Whoa.
they were still working effectively with this system that I taught them. And
Yeah.
they were just looking for a checkup based on what was happening now. But that's what really gave me a lot of faith that what I'm sharing with people lasts. I know it's lasted with me. Um, and it's so great because you don't have to keep worrying about, oh, I always get angry about that. I always get upset
Right.
about that.
Right.
This doesn't happen anymore. You might get upset that much, but it doesn't really happen anymore. You're free to do other things. And, uh, I don't have a lot of research behind it, Don, but not, I mean, book learning research. I have worked with clients with my approach for 50 years, and
50
I know
years.
for sure that it works. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And like I said, I've worked with it with me. I worked with me first, and
right.
when it worked, then I offered clients the opportunity to experiment to
I
see if it
like
would work
that.
for them.
I like
Yeah.
that. Now, you and I last week we had a conversation that I really wanted to just dive into a little bit more, just because I want other women to hear this from you. You said that at one time you had gone into the doctor and they had diagnosed you with cancer. And let's start from there because I think the message that you gave was so powerful that I thought people need to hear this now. Before you talk about it, I just want the world to know who's listening and looking that we are not endorsing what she's saying. What she's just telling you is what worked for her.
Amen.
Okay.
That's true.
I just want to give that disclaimer so that nobody says that we're saying for them to do it. We're talking about the experience that you had that worked for you, like the experience that you've had through your therapy, the experience that you had through writing the books, the experience that you had after your husband passed away. These are your own personal experiences that worked for you. So share that story because I think it's
Okay.
very important.
So let me set the stage. I was married to my husband who died was a neurosurgeon. He
Yeah.
was a doctor and he died of cancer. And what I observed through his illness and death, because he believed in Western medicine, hook, line, and sinker, he did everything he was told to do.
Yes.
And I didn't see anybody making an effort to heal him. I just saw them making effort to make him comfortable or to explain what was happening. So when I got the diagnosis, which incidentally happened just as I was about to start off in the RV, right? I get a diagnosis. And it was for a small, slow growing breast cancer. And I said to the doctor, and he said, let's operate and remove it. And I said, I really don't want to do that. I'd like to see if I can heal it because I wanted to know. And I'm an alternative medicine person, even though I was married to a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I researched and I came up with a totally raw diet. I did Chinese energy medicine. I took supplements all the while I'm traveling in my RV. And I drove my children wild, as I told you. They were going, just get it cut out, and
Yeah.
they didn't quite understand. And uh, but I stuck with it, and my plan was to go for a year. Now the doctor said this is a cancer that's slow growing, but I won't don't recommend if you're going to do this that you take any longer than a year to actually have it removed
Right.
because every year it's going to grow faster. So it's supposed to grow 2 to 4% in the first year, 4 to 8% in the second year, and so forth. And so he connected me with a doctor who was the head of breast oncology surgery at Duke Medical Center in North Carolina. Top person that I could have been working with. And I went in every quarter and had a mammogram to see what was happening.
Right.
And so my plan was at the end of a year, if it's healed, it's healed. And if it's not, then I'll have it removed.
Right.
And when I finally went in at the end of the year, we discovered that it had not disappeared, but it also did not grow at all.
Like they said.
And I said that I'm satisfied with that. I was able to do something. So we had it removed, and the doctor did a fabulous job. I would defy anybody to find the scar.
Yeah.
And I did not do radiation or chemo by my choice, because I felt that I had spent a whole year strengthening my immune system, and those two things to me would tear it down some, and I didn't see the point in that. The doctor did not totally agree with me, but you know, it was my choice.
And this year you're gonna be 80 years old.
Right, I am.
Right.
So that was 4 years ago. That was 2018. I had it removed, and I'm off cancer watch now. I've had no recurrence of anything. And yes, in November, I'm turning 80. And the year 79 has also been a medical year, because I visited my daughter, fell on her stairs, broke my arm, and had to have shoulder replacement surgery.
Right.
So it made it really difficult to get back in my van.
Yeah, driving the RV.
Look what I can do now. It's only been 7-8 months.
Wow. And you can raise both your arms. That's amazing. Now, since you talked about it, let's go ahead. That was my next thing we were going to dive into. I want you to talk about these wonderful adventures you've had in the RV. Let's talk about the very first place you went when you first got the RV, because I know you're probably excited. Let's talk about what type of RV. We're going to show them the picture at the end. But let's talk about this RV and just how you got this idea of, I'm going to get an RV instead of, you know how some people will get an old school bus and they'll convert it, or they'll get a van and they'll convert it. But baby, you went out in luxury. You got an RV. Because see, I think RVs are so much a luxury. I wanted to actually do a cross-country road trip in an RV that was wrapped, you know, with women and stream videos every day. Couldn't find anybody crazy enough to do it with me.
So we are out there. We are out there. Just keep looking.
When I tell you I've been looking for about 5 years, it's been 5 years. And I even found a company where you can rent the RV from. It wasn't expensive or anything. And I was just like, this would be so cool to do like a 1-month road trip and then stream the video to let everybody know what's going on. And people are like, you know, hey, we got lives. We can't do that. And I'm like, there's got to be somebody out there who wants to take the adventure. But let's talk about your adventures. Where did you go first? First of all, how did you choose the RV that you have? Because there's so many types. And then let's talk about, where'd you go first?
Well, I have to preface this with, I live my life by following my heart.
Right.
So anybody who is a researcher, who looks at things and compares and all this, will be horrified with how I picked this van. I had clients who were, the husband was retiring and they bought an Airstream. And when they were coming for a therapy session one time, they brought the Airstream and they invited me to come out and look at it and so forth. And I really like Airstreams. They're really nice. I always thought they were very expensive. So it led me to look online at Airstreams. And there I found that there was something that I like, what I'm in. It's called a leisure van. And it's on, you know, the chassis, the vans that Prime Delivery uses, those are called Sprinter vans.
Right,
and my van, which I'm in now, is on a Sprinter van chassis. And then the RV part of it was built by a company called Triple E in Manitoba, Canada. And it's a town full of artisans, and it's really well put together. And I mean, you can see, for example, can you see those cupboards? They're
Yep.
such nice looking cupboards, and
Very, very
and
nice looking.
yeah, and that's my bed behind me. You can see the covers sticking out
And you're
because I have
sitting
a
in the front seat where you drive from?
No, I'm
No.
sitting in a seat in front of the driver's seat is up that way.
Oh, okay. I was just
But,
wondering because I saw two chairs. Okay.
so I looked online, I found this, and I just loved it. And I ordered a new one. Now, my husband, had always didn't have enough money, but my husband, once I married him, he said, always get the best, get the best, get the best. So when I sold the house and I had some money, I said, I'm going to get the best.
So that's
And I know
right.
it cost me
Right.
some money. So I ordered a new one. And just as the new one arrived, I get the cancer diagnosis. And I don't know if I'm really going to be able to do the trip or not. My two adult children
Oh,
that I gave birth to, they stepped in. My daughter said, I'll complete. So anyway, my son and daughter stepped in to help me.
yeah.
So I canceled the new order. We had found a van online used that I liked, and I thought there's no point in me investing in this brand new van. Uh, so I'm in the one that I had found, and my daughter stepped up and said, I will complete the purchase of it for you. And my son said, Mom, I'll set it up with a Wi-Fi system and solar, because I know you're not going to stay on the main roads, you're
Right.
going to be
Right.
boondocking.
Yeah.
And so they took care of me. And my daughter, I flew her out to California because my grandson was about to graduate from high school. And she drove with me across country to North Carolina. That was my very first trip. And then it was in June, and I was a bit timid about taking this RV out on the road during summer vacation.
Right.
So I waited till mid-August. Fortunately, I could stay with my daughter. And then I took a trip. I went up the Shenandoah Valley, which I hadn't been to since 1949 when I lived in Virginia with my family.
Okay.
And I went into Pennsylvania and visited two family members. I went to Niagara Falls. I came back through New England, and I went to the Canadian Maritimes, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. And it was October by the time I came back. I was there for a while,
Right.
and I had such a wonderful time. People were so great. I was I was staying with people who were part of a group called Boondockers Welcome, and
Mhm.
those are people who have either a space in their home or land someplace, and you can stay. At that time, you could stay for free overnight. Now I think they charge a minimal thing. But the interesting thing about those Boondockers Welcome people is they were all interested in meeting new people.
Yes.
And they were wonderful to get to know. I mean, some people took me to a musical event. Another group took me out for lobster dinner. Uh, another person had a full setup of plugging in everything, and I had a problem with my hot water heater, and he was a retired plumber. He fixed it. It was just amazing what happened in that first trip.
Let's just be really clear. You went all the way to Nova Scotia by yourself
Yes,
in the RV.
yes, I do
It
have.
took about 2 months.
Yes, excuse me just a minute. I'll show you. I do have a companion. This is
Okay.
Pi. This
Okay.
is my companion. So I do have something live in here with me.
And
Thank you, Pi.
pretty. It's so gorgeous.
Right,
Wow.
right.
That
Um,
most people would look at it and say, and I know your kids were freaking out in the beginning because you think, we know mom is okay, but it's all the weird things that happen. Other people think are weird. Like being safe on the road, like you said, not going through vacation time because there's gonna be a lot of cars on the road, but just knowing that you were going all the way through Canada by yourself. I know they were worried, but I'm pretty sure. What would be a few tips that you would tell someone who wants to do something like this, but on their own and feel comfortable? What are a few safety tips that you would give them? Because I'm pretty sure just going on a regular road trip in a car is different than when you're going in the RV because you've got to be able to hook the RV up some places that where you didn't get the boondockers welcome and all that. And so I'm sure they would have to have a map of all of the places where they can hook the RV up because I mean, of
Right.
course, at night when you go to sleep, you may need to have a little air on you and things like that. So, what are some safety tips that you would give people? Because obviously, you've got your safety tips all put together because that's a big adventure.
Well, I don't think my children were so worried about me as you may think. I do think first of all, my son set it up so he could keep track of where I was
Good.
electronically.
GPS
All
track.
right.
Okay.
And that was fine with me. And the other part is my kids know that I do cockamamie things all the time. So they were, while they might have been uncomfortable, it was like, well, that's who my mom is. So they let me go. And I did keep in contact with them and so forth.
Yeah.
But this may sound silly, but not silly, but unusual. Um, the most important thing to keep yourself safe is to dedicate yourself to the principle of love. All right?
Yeah.
Because what we have inside of us, we attract from outside of us.
Right. Love.
And so many people are adverse to the idea of loving themselves. And certainly when I started out my adult life, I didn't know how to love myself,
Right.
and a lot of people think it's selfish, but it isn't. It's the most important thing we need to do. I wrote a series of books for parents teaching their children about emotions in the early 90s.
Mhm.
And one of the resources that I consulted said, love is love is love. It doesn't matter if you're loving yourself or you're loving somebody else.
Right.
What is important is that you choose love as your guiding principle in your life.
Right.
Now, that was in 1994. I made that choice then, and I can look back and see how my life has changed all that time.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing it for so long that I totally trusted that I would be, what would be reflected to me was love.
Yeah.
And I literally have not had any bad experiences. I did have one man who was in a campground and he kept coming by asking if he could use my batteries to charge. He was not functioning well. And I was uncomfortable with him, but he stopped by and asked me something one time. Here's my wonderful son again. When I was on the phone with my son, and my son said to me, Mom, that man has really bad energy. You need to get away from him.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I listened to my son and I packed up and I left that campground that day.
Good. And so
But that's
what
only
I'm
time.
hearing you say is that because you had that self-love within you, that self-love was really your protection anyway.
Love is our protection.
Right.
And, that's why I said it may sound pie in the sky, but, especially since I've also been able to deal with emotions like anger and fear and whatever.
Yes.
So I don't really do those emotions. I'm not really lonely. And I can't begin to tell you how wonderful the experiences I have are. For example, just recently I was camping next to a lake and a woman came for the day and I offered to help her carry some things to her car. She had a little dog like I just showed you mine, but hers was a little bit bigger. She
Yeah.
said, "Does your dog like water?" And I said, "Not really." And she said, "Oh, I have this dog uh, life vest, and it's too small for my dog. I'm looking for somebody." And I said, "Well, my dog doesn't like to get in water, but I like to go in a boat, and I need one of those, so
Right.
I will take it." So she handed it to me. I mean,
Oh.
that's what my experience is like. I went online. It was worth $55. It was a really wonderful gift, and it fit my dog perfectly.
And that was what I was
That's
going to ask you about, the friends that you've been able to make on your road, because that is so important right there.
Yeah, people have been helpful. They have helped me with issues. I went to a campground in Georgia, for example, and
Uh-huh.
since it was a federal campground, when I went off to go grocery shopping, I left my folding chair and a couple of things out at the campground.
Right.
The people who were running the campground these knew that others might steal it. they collected it up and took it to the front entry gate and kept it for me till I came back. I mean, it's just unreal how wonderful people are. And now I also met a couple in Colorado that they've become part of my family. I go to visit them now.
That's what I'm talking about, those lasting friendships that you've been able
to. Yeah. And it's just absolutely amazing. And I've also been able, for 2 weeks, I took each of my granddaughters, two of my granddaughters. One was 10, one was 13. The 10-year-old, we went to Sedona, Arizona. We went to the Grand Canyon. We went to the Great Sand Dunes National Park in Colorado.
Right.
And so she was with me for 2 weeks. I picked her up in Phoenix and dropped her off on the plane to go home in Denver. And the other one, who was 13 at the time, she flew into North Carolina, and we went to the East Coast. She loves fishing and oceans. And then we went up to Washington, D.C., and we're there for the 4th of July fireworks and to go through Washington, D.C. That was so precious.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely, that sounds so exciting. Yeah. Well, if you ever need to pick up a passenger to go somewhere, I'm available. So put my little thing in. You're in Houston now, so
I was going to say, I'm where you are now. You better hook up soon. I never know where I'm going.
I was going to say, you know what? And that was my next question. I was going to ask you, what's your next adventure in the RV?
Well, I would like to mention some of the other adventures.
Okay. Yes.
2.5 months after I broke my arm, my sister and brother-in-law had invited me to go to Egypt with them. Yes. So I went to Egypt for 2 weeks, and with the permission of my doctor, I was able to ride a camel. When I asked him, "Can I ride a camel?" he said, "Just don't fall off." You know. Yes. Okay. And for my 80th birthday, a friend of mine who's also having a birthday, we're renting a villa in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and celebrating with friends and family. And then in January, I'm going to Cambodia and Vietnam again with my sister. So I'm having some amazing adventures. In the meantime, I'm writing books as well. So those are kind of amazing adventures and teaching and so forth. I mean, when I first got into the van, I needed to face what getting older meant to me.
Right.
And I won't go through everything, but just I came to look at getting older as a baseball game. And by this point, I'm on third base, right? Now, there are 2 ways people can go into third base. They can go in sliding on their belly, or they can go in standing up. And I decided I wanted to go in standing up,
Amen.
Which means I have to keep functioning in my life and living fully, just as I always have, you know.
No matter what age.
Actually, I'm living more fully now because I'm not being a mother and wife and stepmother and all of the things I mean, I've just been busy in my life, and now I can sleep as long as I want. I can go where I want. I can take a vacation whenever I decide to, and so forth, which is just wonderful.
Well, I love it. So Eileen, what you've shared with us today is such an inspiration, especially our focus is on women, because we are the ones that, mostly take care of the kids, make sure the house is taken care of. We do everything and we forget about ourselves. What I love about everything that you've said today is that in the midst of all of this, through all this time, you've never forgotten about yourself. And that's the important thing that people need to know. So as I was saying,
can I say something about that very quickly?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
I was trained to put my children ahead of myself.
And see, I never fell for that training. I always told people that if I don't take care of myself, then how will I be able to take care of my children the way I need to? So why would I put them first when I'm the leader to make sure that they get to where they need to be, so then they can be like little butterflies and fly away later? I never fell for that.
You are much smarter than I am. What happened is my first husband left me when my daughter was 10 months old. So I suddenly became a single parent.
Right.
And and I was trying to finish graduate school and all that stuff. And so I would get sick, like with a cold or something. And I had this powerful child. I mean, most babies, if they want to share their food, they hold it out to you in their hand. My daughter would shove it in my mouth, right?
Oh,
She was so powerful. So I would get sick and I would say to her, honey, I really need your help today. Mommy's not feeling well. Here's what I'd like you to do. And guess what? Those were the worst days I ever had with my child.
oh my God.
She pushed everywhere. And I finally realized what you just stated. I'm the most important person here because when I'm not functioning right, nobody gets taken care of.
There
And
was
so I
just
made
something
myself more
about that
important.
that never felt right to me. And people tried to get to convince me that that was the right way. And I'm like, that cannot be the right way because if I don't do my part, then how would I expect them to be the best that they can be? Because
Right.
once our bucket is depleted, then we don't have anything else to give, and then that causes depression.
Exactly.
That causes for you
Causes you to
to really
lash
love
out at your
yourself.
kids too. Yeah.
Exactly. So I
Yeah.
never fell for that, and I just could not. But Eileen, you've shared with us today so much. You've shared your books with us. You've shared your emotional mastery classes with us. You shared with us your RV adventures. You've shared with us the consulting that you do. And by the way, mothers and daughters, if you go to her website, when you click on the consultation, then it says you can send her an email. Eileen, give them your website right quick.
It's emotionalmasteryforlife.com. All
.com.
one word,
And the
emotionalmasteryforlife.com.
And the website is very easy to navigate because I was just on there. You talk about the transpersonal changes. You've talked about turning 80 this year. Before we let you go, the one thing I want to say first is thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule
My
to
pleasure.
come and share with our viewers and our listeners because these are the stories. We need to hear these real stories. And I think what I really, really love about talking to you right now is that you're telling me things that you already been through, tried, tested, and you know what works and what doesn't work. You didn't just tell me, well, I read this in a book and it said this. Because I'm sure just like me, you've also read Louise's Hay book, Heal Thyself. But guess what? You took advantage of it and you literally did something for yourself. So I like the messages that you're giving me is not something you read in the book, something somebody told you in your ear, something that you assume. This is what you know that you know that you know.
And I've been able to share it with other people and see it work for them too.
Which is
And
so important because if people
yeah.
don't hear it, then I think when people don't hear these stories, then they don't understand how it can possibly be true.
Mm-hmm.
But when you hear
So one of the things
real
that I
work,
need to come back and talk with you about is my second book that I've written. It's not published yet. Is about ending manipulation. That
oh
human
no
beings
no no
are.
no no, let's talk about a little bit about this now. So no, ending manipulation. Oh, that's
Yeah.
no, seriously, that's big.
I
That
know it
is
is.
that is big. How did you come up with the title for that one?
Well, actually, I'm not happy with that title, which is what I need to get together. I recently had another idea that what happens when you are being manipulated is you are experiencing energy leaks, and that tires us out and it makes us irritable. So I want to tie that in with the title, but I'll just give you the concept.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
I learned when my marriage broke up, I was upset with my husband that I saw that he was manipulating me, and I thought, damn it, I'm a therapist. I'm going to figure this out. And so I studied it, and after 6 months, I discovered the first, what I call the first law of manipulation, which is it takes one to know one,
Mm,
which meant that if he was manipulating me, I was manipulating him. And I had done everything in my life not to manipulate, so I couldn't figure it out. But here's what I found. I found that the real issue was that I was carrying a belief that I was not lovable.
right, right.
And here was a
And
man
you
who
allowed
told
it.
me he loved me, and he proved it by marrying me. So I was using him to feel lovable.
Right.
And that was an amazing thing to me. But I kept on with the study. And what I discovered is that everybody is born manipulative. We are in little bodies. We have brains that don't work well. We can't function in the world unless we have an agent, somebody who will do things for us. right?
Oh my God, what you're saying is hitting me so hard because I remember I dated someone for a very long time. And the one thing he told me when we first met is he said, everybody uses everybody. He said, you have something I want, I have something you want. He said, but don't look at it like you're using me or I'm using you. It's just that we feed off of one another. Everybody uses everybody for something. And so what you're saying right now is just so true because it was proven. It's proven that
Right.
we don't connect with people that we don't relate to or that we can't bounce off, off of. And so, I
But
cannot,
when,
you know what? I might have to just really bring you back to talk about that book because I think we can put a whole show together with that
oh,
because
definitely.
I'm one of these really strange people that my brain will tell me when I feel like someone is negatively trying to manipulate me. And then
Yeah.
I'll not only call it out, but I'll make them understand exactly how that made me feel. And then
Hmm.
if they continue with it, then I disconnect myself from them.
That
And the reason I
that's
disconnect
excellent.
myself from them is because I don't want to continue to have to fake fraud and be around you just to fit into your little manipulation, whatever it is
But
that you're
you
doing.
see, when you do that, you are not manipulating, because when you manipulate, the idea is that we're afraid that if we don't have the connection like we had when we were babies,
Right.
we're not going to get our needs met. We're not going to survive. And the minute you say, I'm separating from you,
Yeah.
that's something that a person that I call a lifestyle manipulator cannot do. They're terrified to disconnect from other people.
And I'll tell you something else that's true is when you do disconnect yourself from that particular individual, you'll know for sure that you had been being manipulated because the first thing they will do is try to make you feel wrong for disconnecting from.
Actually, what I say in my book is that a good manipulator has a three-part something is the matter with you. You are um, uh, wrong. Let's see. You're bad, wrong, or crazy, and it
Yes.
usually
Yes.
comes out in
Yes.
that sequence.
Oh my goodness. You have no idea. Yeah, I'm bringing you back. That's for sure. I'm bringing you back. So whenever that book is done, you just hit me up and say, "Hey, Dawn, the book is done."
Okay.
And I hope that you will send me copies of your books. I would love to be able to add that to my bookshelf and read them and add it to my bookshelf. I know one thing, Louise, our mutual friend, what she's done is she's giving me all of her books because she says, Dawn, the reason I'll give you my books is because one, you learn from them. Two, you put action behind them. And three, I know that you love to read and then you share it with other people. So I would love to add your books to my library so that I can forever have those books and say, I met her. She was wonderful. But I do feel like you were the perfect fit for this series this month for wonderful women. And Eileen, I thank you so much for being on my show today. And
My
I
absolute
and
pleasure.
listen, I'm bringing you back for that book series because that right there, that right there, that gave me a lot of confirmation on, again, the third one. I'm not crazy.
Right. Well, and just to tie this up just a little bit for
Yes.
people, the way to end manipulation is just to end it in yourself, which is not easy. But
No, no,
that
no,
means
it's
that
not.
you need to spend time alone,
Yes.
which is scary.
Yes.
And so that's the way to end manipulation. Just take the time to be separate from others long enough that
Right.
you kind of go through that withdrawal and get to the other side. And I cannot, because I did it myself and I've helped a lot of other people do it, I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how different your life is once you get out of
Entirely.
people using your energy when you
Yeah.
haven't given them permission to do it.
Thank you. Because people haven't figured out that it's that energy transfer. And if I'm in a space where my energy is off or their energy is off to me, it makes everything uncomfortable. And at that point, it's like, we really don't have to do that every day. We really can create a life that we really want to live every day through using the tools that we can get, reading and all. Oh, Eileen, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to have you back on the show and we're going to talk about that new book. Is there any last thing that you would like to say to our viewers and listeners, because you have been such
Well,
a delight?
I don't know. I think the thing is basically love yourself and live your life flat out, because we don't know if we have other lives, but even if we don't, this is it. This is your opportunity. So live flat out, enjoy yourself. I've recently made a big change in myself. I had perceived, and it's true, that I had a very difficult life.
Yes.
And recently I noticed that I was still contributing to it being difficult.
Right.
So I said one day, that's over. And now if it's not fun, and if it's not easy, I'm not doing it.
I'm not doing. Oh, it's true. This is me. This is, and you know what's funny? As we age, we learn so many lessons that takes us into these different areas. When I turned 49 years old, I felt like I was in act number 3 for me. First act, married, housewife. Okay. Second act, raising my kids, raising my businesses. Okay. Third act, I'm going to be 50 in September, and I've already a couple years ago I've moved into this space of I don't want anybody's energy around me that's off, because you already know me. So if you know me and you know that I'm not with all that other stuff, then you either can get it together for yourself at your decision, or we can just not share space. And I'm okay with that. And so
let me speak to the women in your audience here. What I have found is that 50 is a magic age for women.
It has to be.
And almost every woman I've ever talked to, including myself, when you turn 50, you say, I have been putting up with people all my life, and I'm not putting up with anybody else's anything for another second.
I got there at 40, I got there at 49, and it's strengthening through I'm getting ready to turn 50. And I have to say I'm very, very thankful that I've gotten to that place. But I just woke up one day and said, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not putting up with that anymore. I'm not bringing that person in my energy space. If there's a function going on and I know that person is not somebody I want to be around, I'm not being around that. I'm not faking anymore. I'm not frauding anymore. I'm not pretending anymore for you.
Yes. That's a wonderful way to live. And you think you may be mean. The trick is to do it for yourself, not against anybody else.
And I did it for myself, not against anyone else. I did it for me. I did it for my life, for what I see where I'm going. So it had nothing to do, because it's kind of like when I remember when I got divorced and somebody said to me, well, you can forgive that person without calling them to say you forgave them. So the first thing I did was started reading books on forgiveness. And it wasn't forgiveness on any particular thing, but just forgiveness that you didn't work with the plan that we had set up. So then it's time for me to go within myself and figure out my next phase of what I want to do. And I don't have to call you and say, oh, by the way, I forgave you. I can just forgive you and move on about my life, because this is my life.
I did, however, call the person who molested me when I was a kid. I called and forgave that person as he was dying, and asked him for his forgiveness for reactions that I had to him. And it was one of the best things I ever did, because forgiveness means to let go.
I just heard Ashley Judd say that she sat down with her molester, and she wanted to hear from his perspective, like why and what was going on with him. And she said now that she heard the other side of the story, she now could release that and forgive him, and she could move on with her life. But she's almost 50 years old, and she just never said to that person, this is how you damaged me or whatever. And she said, so I believe what you're saying, because I've heard a few people say that they've spoken to someone who did those type of things to them.
It works. My molester didn't have memory of the whole thing. I went chapter and verse, didn't remember any of it. And I think that happens because we all want to think of ourselves as good people.
Yeah.
We don't like to think we were bad people. Right. But I held his feet to the fire and I said, you did do it. I wasn't crazy. I was not too young to remember, and you do have to take responsibility. And I did finally get, well, I don't remember it, but I didn't ever intend to hurt you. And if I did, I apologize. So I got that.
Well, good.
But it was amazing, because to forgive means to let go. And it's not for the other person that you let go. It's for yourself, as you were saying.
That's right. All right, then, Eileen, I thank you so much for being on the show today. And for our mothers and daughters that are listening, please listen to what we are saying step by step, and just absorb it in and figure out what it is that you want for your own personal life. You can set up a personal life whatever way you want to do it. If you want to support our show, make sure that you support us through Cash App, which is $MDI Podcast, or we would love to have you over on our Instagram page, which is mother-daughter-ish_. We post at least 3 to 7 times there a day, and it's always something fun, a nice quote, what's going on, positive things that you can take away in your life and any kind of thing that's happening in the world that we feel like mothers and daughters should know if it's going to advance you or help you. Also, make sure you subscribe to the show so that you can hear it, and then also put those notifications on so you'll know when Eileen is coming back to talk about this book. All right, Miss Eileen, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Miss Dawn.
All right,
I appreciate it. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Miss Dawn. You wondering how you can support our show, Mother-Daughter-ish? We have Cash App, we have PayPal, and we do have Vimeo. Support our show so that we can reach out to more women. Our goal is to reach and build a community of 1 million women. Why don't you come on and help us do that?